Hello, I'm Steven Roy Goodman, host of Higher Education Today, a production of the University of the District of Columbia. Welcome back to Your Education Program, the program that connects you to contemporary issues, people, institutions, and organizations involved in the business of higher education in the United States and around the world. Today we'll be talking about unconventional education options. My guests are representatives from two very different schools that offer very different experiences for the right student. Katie Green represents Warren Wilson College in North Carolina, one of the 7 work colleges in the United States. A work college requires that all students work a set number of hours in order to offset a portion of their tuition. Katie is a 2002 graduate of another work college, Berea College in Kentucky. Nick Atkinson represents Richmond University in London. Richmond is a U.S. university in England that specializes in educating students from around the world through an American-style liberal arts curriculum. Nick speaks English, French, German, and Spanish. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Steve.
Thanks again for being here. Well, Katie, if I can start with you, what is a work college? And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about what a work college is, in your words, and why you went to one in the first place.
Absolutely. Your introduction did a great job. So all of the work colleges have as a requirement of their students that the students work a set number of hours on campus before they graduate. So, for example, Berea, during my time in Berea, I worked for about 10 to 12 hours a week. I was first initially assigned to food service, and then I worked for 3 years as a teaching assistant for 3 years. And at Warren Wilson, the school that I am representing today, our students work 15 hours a week and on over 110 work crews. So.
And does a student choose which crew they want to be on, or?
So coming in, students will fill out what's called a work history application. So we really try to assign students to work crews that match their experience. So if they've got great experience on their father's carpentry crew for 15 years, then that might be where they go, right? But if they don't have general work experience skills, then they might be generally assigned. And so that's what happened to me at Berea. I came in with a little bit of work experience, but I wound up in food service.
Fair enough. And the food's okay there?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Good. And if we can turn to Nick, I realize this is another educational opportunity that some students can have. You represent a U.S. university that's overseas, that's in the UK.
Correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Richmond, the American International University in London, is an American accredited institution in London. We're actually quite unique in that we not only have accreditation here in the US, but we also have accreditation in the UK. So one of the special things I think about Richmond is that essentially when you come to us you get 2 degrees for the price of 1. We are also distinguished, I think, by the fact that we have no national majority. We're based in England, but only about 6% of our students actually come from England. We have actually the largest block of students from the US, about 30% of our students from the US, 18% from the Middle East, 15% from Asia, 15% from Africa, 21% overall from Europe, and the rest from South America. So it's a real melting pot. So yes, you're studying at an American university, yes, you're studying in London, but you're also studying amidst a sea of people from all over the world.
Fair enough. And in terms of the work that Katie just referred to a second ago, do students work on campus, or how does that work? I realize it's not a work college, but can you maybe explain for our viewers how a student would work if they wanted to work or get financial aid or think about trying to pay for their studies at Richmond?
Absolutely, good question. Quite a lot of our students do work while they're at Richmond to help offset the cost of the education. US students who come to us on a Tier 4 student visa, which we assist them with, are allowed to work up to 20 hours per week during the semester. Full-time outside the semester. It's actually quite good. I think that they have a limit of 20 hours per week, because any more than that, I think they'd have real trouble with their studies. But 20 hours a week is the maximum. Some on campus, for example, in our admissions office, some off campus. And one of the nice things about both of our campuses in London, Richmond and Kensington, and I'll tell you more about those later, is that they're both situated in areas where there are plenty of off-campus work opportunities in retail or restaurants where students can easily find work.
So I could work in a restaurant and pay my tuition, essentially, or pay part of my tuition?
It would help offset the cost, yes.
Right. And since we're talking about food, I don't know, I'm not particularly hungry today, but Katie, you started this conversation with the food. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about, the sustainable, food program. My understanding at some of the work colleges, it's kind of interesting in that you're essentially, a lot of them are green campuses, and you're trying to do your very best to make sure not only are they green campuses, but also that you're trying to make sure the food is locally grown and that it's quite good.
Right, absolutely. At Warren Wilson, we have a garden and a farm, and a lot of the produce that winds up in our vegan cafe and our regular cafeteria come from the garden. And then our beef and pork products also come from the farm, where we have a 200 herd of cattle, swine herd. So, that's definitely a focus of our school and many of the other work colleges as far as sustainability is concerned. From the farm to the table, that whole initiative, that's definitely something that we take a lot of pride in and honor.
Well, but how does that work exactly? So because this is intriguing to me. So I don't have any specific skills. I'm a general freshman. I come to Warren Wilson, and I'm assigned. And I didn't work for my dad, who was a carpenter for 15 years, as you suggested before.
Sure.
So I'm assigned to one of the work crews that makes food, or that what? Maybe
residence hall maintenance, or maybe the landscaping crew. So what happens there in your first year is that you're going to be developing those work skills that are so instrumental later on, right? So we have at Warren Wilson a triad approach to education, so it's academics, work, and service. And so a student might be studying biology to go on to vet school, so that student might want to wind up on the farm working with animals, right? And then do service at the Humane Society. But that first year is really, intentionally developed so that a student will develop those skills, like coming in on time and working with their work crew supervisor, working collaboratively. So really setting the groundwork for that great work ethic that work colleges lend students.
Well, it's an interesting idea if you think about it, because not a lot of colleges do that.
Right.
But how is it different from, let's say, a co-op? Let's say I'm at Northeastern University in Boston. They have a big co-op program that's very well known. How is a work college different in that way?
Sure. And I don't know much about the co-op at Northeastern, but I would say that Warren Wilson differs from a co-op in that all of our students are working together in a communal way, in a community way, in a community-based way, but they don't own or so that their work programs really give back to the community and yeah.
Fair enough. All right, so Nick, now you guys represent schools that are about the same size. So if I understand this correctly, you're both about 1,000 undergraduate students.
Correct.
Okay, más o menos, right? And so if
Yes.
you're both about 1,000, so this is kind of interesting. So a viewer who's watching today would say, I've never thought of a work college, I've never thought about an American school overseas. Katie, I think, made a pretty interesting case for why work is important. It's good for the soul, it's good for development, it's good for intellectual development. I assume that you would make a case that an international education is important in some general way, and perhaps a specific way. Would you make that case?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that in my more than 20 years working with American students on both sides of the Atlantic, I found that the exposure to different countries and cultures is incredibly transformative in a positive way. Secondly, I think that one of the notable things about this country, the US, is that it's incredibly cocooned from the rest of the world. You have Canada to the north, you have Mexico to the south, but for the vast majority of the country, that's hundreds of miles away. You open the newspapers, the international news, what little there is of it seems to be buried somewhere in the middle. And so I think in a world in which we are increasingly part of an interconnected community globally, it's incredibly important to offer students the opportunity to study in an environment that will prepare them for that reality.
But then why wouldn't I go to a British school? Let's say I wanted to go to the UK. You're an American school in the UK. Why wouldn't I go to the University of East Anglia?
You could do. If you wanted to be plugged in to one of the world's most exciting capital cities, then you might want to choose Richmond.
Right. But let's play off this idea about a school that's kind of an American school somewhere else, and a school that is really an international school that doesn't have the American component. because I think you're positing something that's a pretty controversial argument.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I completely agree with that, but
yeah.
some people would agree with you
right.
and say, okay, that's interesting, Steve. You know, a lot of people really ought to, a lot of Americans should spend more time overseas because that'll help people understand what the world is like more broadly.
Right.
But then why wouldn't I then go to a university in France that's a French university, or a university in Korea? So are you offering me a middle ground, or that's what I'm...
Yeah, in a sense, yes, Steve. I think that what we offer is an institution where you can study according to the traditional American liberal arts format. From soup to nuts, it's quite a familiar process in terms of applying to us as an institution, in terms of when you get there, what kind of academics you're going to expect. It's going to be unfamiliar enough being on the other side of the Atlantic. At least you can have the familiarity of an educational system that is quite close to home, if you like. You know, one of the differences between us and almost all other institutions in the UK is that we are the result of the traditional K through 12 pre-university education here in this country. In England, you have 13 years of pre-university studies. You also have a tradition in which, for your last 2 years of high school, you're required to specialize to a very, very high degree. So, for example, most students in England will spend their last 2 years of high school focusing only on 3 or 4 subjects, the so-called A-level subjects. The net result of all that is that the senior year of high school in England, if you like, is more or less equivalent in terms of academic rigor to the freshman year at an American university. So it's sort of apples and oranges, and switching from one system to the other is actually not that easy.
Right. And well, let's give Katie a chance to talk about the international stuff, if we can, for a second as well. Can I go to Warren Wilson and then study abroad?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's part of our mission that our students study abroad, so they do so at really high rates. And they study abroad in a lot of different ways, and they can go abroad for the whole year or maybe just a semester, but we also offer short-term study abroad courses on campus. And so this is where we teach a course on campus, and then for about 8 weeks, and then as a group, you and your faculty and staff members will go to the site that you've been learning about. And so, and those short-term courses also include work and service and language acquisition. So would I work if I were a Warren Wilson student and I went to, what's the most popular country where students study abroad? Oh goodness, we go everywhere. There's not really a #1 country, you know, maybe Costa Rica.
Costa Rica,
okay, sure,
great, Costa Rica. I've been to Costa Rica, it's a nice country.
Sure.
Okay, so let's say we go to Costa Rica to study abroad. Would I be doing the same work requirements that I did back in North Carolina?
Not so much, no. So our students work 15 hours a week, and so the students who are studying abroad in Costa Rica wouldn't necessarily be working 15 hours a week. And they might be, if the subject matter was that they were studying maybe organic farming, maybe they would be working on a farm, but the requirements aren't exactly the same. But they would work maybe with the family, maybe a host family, and work with them.
Would you try to then place the student at the organic farm in Costa Rica?
If it's part of the program, I mean, it would be developed beforehand, sure.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you're saying that a student who's thinking about, let's say, going to Costa Rica, or a group of students thinking about Costa Rica, you as an institution would then try to help them to kind of formulate this study abroad, so it's not just a take a couple of pictures and send home.
Oh, exactly, exactly. Integration is the name of the game for these study abroad courses, and so you can count on course content being delivered and gotten in the country, but also that service component and the work component as well, and language acquisition. So it's definitely you know, a very comprehensive approach to studying abroad.